Something extraordinary happened around the world between 800 and 200 BCE. Historians call this period the Axial Age. It was an era of profound transformation. Humanity seemed to collectively awaken to new possibilities of thought and spirit. In different corners of the globe, with no apparent contact, a handful of revolutionary thinkers emerged. In China, Confucius, redefining social order and morality. In India, the Buddha, exploring suffering and enlightenment. In the Middle East, prophets like Isaiah and Jeremiah, shaping monotheism. These weren't kings or generals, they were philosophers, they were prophets, they were mystics. They forever changed how we see ourselves and our place in the universe. They introduced radical new concepts that resonated through the centuries. They championed compassion. They championed individual conscience. They championed universal moral principles. Before this, religion and society centered on local gods, tribal loyalties, and ritual sacrifices. Axial Age thinkers turned that paradigm inward. They urged people to look within for truth. They urged people to question the established order. They urged people to live ethically out of understanding, not fear. This was the birth of philosophy. This was the birth of world religions. This was the birth of the personal spiritual journey. The questions they asked are the same ones we grapple with today. What if another element was at play, something personal and neurological? To understand this connection, we must first understand what autism is. For many decades, it was viewed as a tragic childhood disorder, a checklist of deficits defined by what a person couldn't do. We now know this view is profoundly incomplete. Autism is not a disease, but a different kind of operating system for the brain. It is a lifelong neurodevelopmental condition that affects how a person experiences the world, processes information, and interacts with others. The term autism spectrum is crucial because it highlights the immense diversity within the autistic population. There is no single type of autistic person. If you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism. Modern understanding, particularly of what was once called Asperger's syndrome, has revealed a profile much more nuanced than the old stereotypes. Many autistic individuals possess average or exceptionally high intelligence. Their primary differences lie in the realms of social communication and sensory processing. They might find it difficult to interpret nonverbal cues like body language or tone of voice, making everyday social interactions feel like trying to understand a foreign language without a dictionary. They may also experience the world with a heightened sensory intensity, where sounds can be deafening, lights blindingly bright, textures overwhelming. This can make the neurotypical world a chaotic and sometimes painful place. The concept of neurodiversity proposes that these differences are not inherently deficits. They are simply variations in the human brain, much like biodiversity is essential for a healthy ecosystem. This perspective is revolutionary. It allows us to look back at history and reevaluate individuals who were once dismissed as eccentric, reclusive, or difficult. The autistic mind often possesses a unique suite of cognitive strengths that are frequently overlooked in a society that prioritizes social grace. One of the most prominent is an extraordinary capacity for deep focus, sometimes called a monotropic mind. The ability to become intensely absorbed in a single subject, pouring immense mental energy into it for extended periods. While a neurotypical mind might be more polytropic, juggling multiple streams of attention at once, the monotropic mind can dive deep, shutting out external distractions to explore a topic with unparalleled thoroughness. Another powerful trait is an exceptional ability in pattern recognition. They often perceive systems, sequences, logical structures where others see chaos. This talent can manifest in a fascination with train schedules, musical compositions, complex mathematical formulas. It's a drive to understand underlying rules, a system of nature, a system of ethics, or a system of cosmic order. This cognitive style is drawn to building intricate logical frameworks from the ground up, a skill key to scientific discovery and to creating comprehensive philosophical and moral codes. Social withdrawal, often framed as a negative, can also be an advantage for a thinker. The constant demand for social interaction can be exhausting and distracting. Solitude isn't necessarily loneliness. It can be a state for recharging, thinking clearly, and pursuing deep work. Away from the noise of social politics and small talk, the mind is free to wander into abstract realms, to connect disparate ideas, and to formulate revolutionary insights without pressure to conform. Combine these traits, intense focus, a drive to systemize and spot patterns, and a natural inclination toward solitude, and you get a powerful recipe for innovation. It's easy to see how a mind like this, in a time of upheaval like the Axial Age, could become a fountainhead of radical ideas that would reshape civilization. Looking back at the towering figures of the Axial Age through this lens, we can see intriguing parallels. Siddhartha Gautama, the man who would become the Buddha, is a prime example. He abandoned a life of princely comfort for years of extreme asceticism and solitary meditation. His quest was driven by an obsessive need to understand the fundamental nature of suffering, a deep, systematic inquiry into a universal problem. His enlightenment under the Bodhi tree was the culmination of a period of intense, unbroken focus, a singular dedication that shut out the entire world. His teachings, the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path, represent a highly logical and systematic framework for achieving liberation, reflecting a mind adept at creating coherent systems of thought. Consider Moses, the great prophet of the Abrahamic faiths. The biblical text describes him as slow of speech and of a slow tongue, a detail often interpreted as a stutter or other speech impediment. He was a man who grew up in a foreign court, an outsider who then spent 40 years in the solitary wilderness as a shepherd. His life was marked by a rigid adherence to divine law and a relentless focus on transmitting God's intricate system of commandments to his people. In ancient China, Confucius dedicated his life to creating a comprehensive ethical and social system to restore order to a chaotic society. He was known for his social awkwardness and his direct, often blunt communication style, which frequently alienated the very rulers he sought to advise. He spent years wandering, an outsider seeking a ruler who would adopt his meticulously constructed system of morality and governance. These are not diagnoses, but observations. However, the patterns in their biographies are compelling. The prophet Ezekiel experienced vivid, overwhelming visions and engaged in bizarre public performances that set him apart. Their difference was not incidental to their genius, it may have been its very source. How a society interprets neurological difference reveals much about its core values. In many ancient polytheistic cultures, behaviors that deviated from the norm were not automatically seen as defects. The village eccentric, the shaman who heard voices, the recluse lost in contemplation. Their unusual perceptions or behaviors could be interpreted as a sign of divine madness, a sacred connection to the gods, spirits, or hidden forces. A person living partially in another reality was not necessarily broken, but perhaps touched by the divine, a conduit for prophecy, wisdom, or artistic inspiration. Intense focus as spiritual dedication, disregard for social conventions as a sign of being above petty concerns, unique sensory experiences and pattern seeing as reasons to value someone as an oracle or seer. Think of the Greek oracle at Delphi, trance-like, set apart from society. The rise of organized monotheism during and after the Axial Age shifted perception dramatically. With belief consolidated into one all-powerful God came emphasis on conformity, order, and a universal moral code. Deviance stopped being read as divine connection and began to be moralized. Demonic possession, a moral failing, a test from God, a punishment for sin. This new paradigm created a more challenging environment for neurodivergent individuals. Healing, exorcism, correction. A person who struggled with social rituals or was prone to obsessive interests might be seen as disobedient or heretical. While compassion was a core tenet of these new faiths, the interpretation of difference became more rigid. The space for divine madness shrank, replaced by a binary of piety and sin, of wellness and affliction, that would shape Western attitudes toward mental and neurological difference for centuries to come. As centuries passed, the harsh interpretations of the medieval era slowly gave way to more compassionate, if still medicalized, views. In the modern era, faith communities within Christianity, Judaism, Islam have been on a journey of their own, grappling with the scientific understanding of autism while holding on to their theological traditions. Many have moved away from supernatural explanations of demonic influence or divine punishment, instead embracing a model of care and inclusion. Churches, synagogues, mosques have increasingly made efforts to become more welcoming spaces for autistic individuals and their families, recognizing that a one-size-fits-all approach to worship does not serve everyone. Within Christian communities, for instance, there is a growing movement to create sensory-friendly services. In Judaism, the concept of tikkun olam, or repairing the world, provides a powerful framework for autism inclusion. Similarly, in Muslim communities, there is an increasing awareness of autism, often framed through the Islamic principles of compassion and mercy. Organizations like Muhsin are working to certify mosques as autism-friendly, ensuring they are physically and socially accessible. The focus is on seeing the autistic person as a full member of the Ummah, or community, deserving of dignity, respect, and the opportunity to practice their faith without barriers. The story of humanity is a story of ideas. We are the species that imagines new worlds and then builds them. From the first moral codes to the latest scientific theories, our progress has been driven by those who could see beyond the horizon of the present moment. The axial age stands as perhaps the most potent example of this, a time when the very foundations of our spiritual and ethical lives were reimagined. While we rightly credit social and economic forces for creating the conditions for this change, we must not overlook the role of the individual thinker, the lonely, obsessive, brilliant mind that could piece together a new reality. Looking back through the lens of neurodiversity allows us to reframe the narrative of innovation. It suggests that the engine of great change is not always conformity and social cohesion, but often the opposite, the friction generated by a mind that does not fit. Deep focus, pattern recognition, a need for solitude, a different way of experiencing the world, are not liabilities in this story. They are assets. They are the cognitive tools that allow for the dismantling of old paradigms and the construction of new, more complex systems of thought. The Buddha's systematic deconstruction of suffering and Moses' devotion to a divine legal structure are testaments to this kind of thinking. Today, as our understanding of the human brain grows more sophisticated, we are slowly rediscovering this ancient truth. The neurodiversity movement is a modern echo of the old wisdom that saw value in divine madness. We are beginning to understand that a society that makes space for every kind of mind is a stronger, more resilient, and more innovative society. In corporate boardrooms, scientific labs, and art studios, we are seeing the unique contributions that autistic individuals make when they are given the support and accommodations they need to thrive. They are still spotting the patterns others miss and building the systems others cannot imagine.